This is a weird way to start a show. I'm almost positive I've never started this way, but here goes. Do you have a problem with where the head of the DEA, that's the Drug Enforcement Administration, do you have a problem with where he is going with his plea for help leading up to the Super Bowl? One thing about the Super Bowl, it is, I'm about to say, the water cooler of American culture, but I'm not even sure we have water coolers anymore, do we? Since COVID, do we have water coolers? Anybody? Probably not. I'll say the bar stool then. The Super Bowl, it's great for my business because the Super Bowl, it's not just about the game. In fact, the game is almost a backdrop to everything else. It really is pop culture on display, and there's always other stuff going on. So it is the best barstool moment we have of the year. Remember the story? I don't mean to laugh, but this is just, I know nothing about the Kansas City Police Department, but I'm willing to use the word incompetent more than once. Remember the story of the Chiefs fans that froze to death in their buddy's backyard? Remember those guys? What was that, 2 years ago now? For whatever ridiculous reason, we don't know exactly what happened to those three guys. Their buddy, of course, if you remember the story, they seriously, they froze to death in their friend's backyard after watching a Chiefs game. The guy that owned the house claimed that he had been asleep for 24 hours and he had no idea his friends were frozen in lawn chairs in the backyard. Jeff, what does that have to do with the DEA? Chairman, president, what is the head of the DEA? Well, it has a lot because he went there. It's weird, but see how you react to all this. He mentioned those dudes that froze in the backyard as well as Taylor Swift. How about that combo? I will tell you up front, because I think we can and should have the discussion, and I'm not going to fault him. I'm not a big fan, just so you know, friend. I am not a fan of our war on drugs. I have not been for a long time. The war on drugs in this country dates back to the Nixon administration. That was a Nixon administration term that was used and created, the war on drugs. It has been a colossal failure, my opinion, on every single level. My opinion, I think it's been a self-serving tool for law enforcement as well as the military. I think it's been a mistake to classify our war on drugs as a military effort or a law enforcement effort rather than a public health effort. But my opinion aside, do you have a problem with where he's going? Do you have a problem with where he is trying to go using the stage of the Super Bowl? In fairness to the head of the DEA, the new head of the DEA, it's the biggest stage, the biggest concentration of American eyeballs and ears you're going to have at any moment of the year. So, of course, people are going to want to send messages. Of course, people are going to spend a lot of money on advertising time. Of course, people are going to say, in the name of public health, let's use this platform. I don't know that's necessarily a bad idea because it's the most effective time to send a message. There's 150 million of us in one place at one time. He's going to tell you to stop doing drugs. Got it? Okay. Here's the story. Newly anointed DEA Administrator Derek Maltz is calling on celebrities to step up and help spread the anti-drug message during Sunday's Super Bowl. Here's the thing, he says. Taylor Swift has 300 million followers. If she did one 30-second video about the dangers of synthetic drugs, she could literally, he says, save thousands and thousands of young kids because they listen to her, they follow her, they love her. Okay, I'm going to keep going because he keeps talking. This is for you. This is, look, I'm not, we can decide how effective you think this pitch is. Thousands and thousands of lives? Do you agree with that? Do you? Do you believe that? He goes on to say, by the way, he said Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes Eagles star Jalen Hurts and WNBA phenom Caitlin Clark all need to be doing their part. Again, do you agree? Should they? Should they hear him and say, oh my gosh, the United States government is yelling at me. I need to go and send some messages. He goes on to say, my goal during this Super Bowl week is to make sure that we could better educate the nation's celebrities, role models, social media influencers, and professional athletes. We want them to better understand that this is something we need their help on. And here's why, he says. Kids in America are on social media reels all day long, whether it's all the social media sites, and that's where they're learning. So we have to reach them where they're at, says the head of the DEA. All right, get this. Guess where he went next? Yeesh. The DEA boss cited the tragic case of 3 Chiefs fans who froze to death in a Missouri backyard while watching their team in the NFL playoffs last year, allegedly with fentanyl and cocaine in their systems. I have no idea what happened to those dudes. He says, I have one of our special agents in charge out there, meaning at the Super Bowl this week with the NFL Alumni Association. You get on as many radio shows as possible to try to recruit these people. It's one of my top goals, end quote. All right. What do you think? I mean, the guy's, one, he's condemning celebrities for not doing more to send messages. He's condemning celebrities, athletes, anybody that's an influencer for not sending anti-drug messages now, and in particular during this week. Why not, he would say to you. What do you think of that? Think it's effective? You think it would be effective? If Mahomes said, oh, by the way, before I step off the stage talking about the game or whatever and answering questions, kids don't do drugs. And he walked off. Would it be effective? Fill in the blank influencer says, oh my gosh, this week is the biggest week. Outside the Superdome, kids don't do drugs. Patrick Mahomes says don't do drugs. Taylor Swift says don't do drugs. I mean, should the government be telling them right now, recruiting them right now to be sending these messages? Is it so terrible? There's that part. We've got a lot of anti-drug effort history in this country. As I said, I think we've gone about it the wrong way from the very beginning. But many of you will disagree. The fact that he's using the Super Bowl week, by the way, is not new. It's not new at all. In fact, there was an advertising effort a few years ago that, you could decide. I mean, most of you now have lived a life of anti-drug messages. You have. You've lived a life of anti-drug advertisements. You've lived a life of different strategies being used. You can answer yourself. I mean, you're on the receiving end of all this stuff. And here's a guy, and I don't, at some level, I don't fault him. That's his job, and he's trying to. I think he at least understands, man, I can do ads all day long. You can hear some goofball, he doesn't say it like this, but some goofball like me get on some shows and tell you kids don't do drugs and you're not going to listen to me, but you'll listen to her and him and go down the list. I don't know that I fault the guy for that. I fault the entire strategy. I fault the fact that we've militarized it. I fault the fact that we've, made it criminal and beat you over the head as opposed to a public health issue. But our history of the messaging, don't do drugs. I mean, have we not now learned? Have the messages, in your opinion, have the messages worked? Have they? If so, why and how? Which ones? So the Super Bowl, again, this is the best chance. I mean, this guy is, there are people all over the place trying to get messaging out right now. Everything from commercials to this guy sending what he thinks are public health issues, because it's the most captive audience at one time that you will get. You won't have another chance like it. And we've got history with this. I remember it wasn't that long ago. There was a lot of people loved piling on this. I started piling on because it involved Bill Clinton. And there was an effort for the DEA would essentially give TV shows credit for anti-drug messages in shows. I ripped it, thought it was terrible, thought it was overreaching. Because the name was Bill Clinton, fans of talk radio loved the fact that I was ripping it. The Bush administration tried to tie the drug problem in this country, because the Bush administration tried to tie everything to terrorism. But they tried to tie, I don't know if you remember this ad campaign. I thought it was a horrible strategy. I thought it was a horrible ad campaign. And in fact, they were using your money, and the agency that created them was triple billing them. They were trying to tie drugs in this country to terrorism, and they used this image of a trunk full of cocaine and machine guns and stuff like that. So, it's as if every administration has tried a new strategy to send messages about drugs. The war on drugs has taken 30 different strategic and creative paths. Hey, Austin, Jeff Ward here, and I never thought I'd be in an accident and need a personal injury attorney. And then sure enough, less than a mile from my house, I was blindsided. I was injured. My world was turned completely upside down. I called DJC Law, and their team took care of everything. I got the best result possible. Don't just take my word for it. They have over 1,000 five-star reviews. So if you're injured, call 512-888-9999 and get your justice at teamjustice.com.